Ichi ni San. Welcome back to the For Your Reference podcast. This is our most delectable reference degustation. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're nasty and you come in at the third course, you are most welcome. If you've joined us in the degustation, we started off with a very palatable Spirited Away. We also moved into a very juicy, sumptuous Porco Rosso. And this third course that we are delivering to you is Mononoke Hime. Take the show away. Howdy, friends and lovers. Welcome back to the For Your Reference podcast. You've got your host, KT.
And Doti.
And if you're well behaved, Theo will be your waiter for the third course in the Reference Degustation.
Oh.
Hold on to your jewel daggers, because your ex is going to stab you in the heart. Today we are covering Mononoke Hime, otherwise known as
Princess Mononoke.
And what a film.
What a film indeed.
What a film indeed. Yes, it's Studio Ghibli. We know it's very cute that it's like a mispronunciation with the accent saying Ghibli. But we do recognize a Ghibli in the For Your Reference household.
Yep.
And you know what I'm just realizing, OT? We are, consciously learned, but apparently we're accidentally learned, because this is the third course and San means 3 in Japanese.
Ah, Ichi-ni-san.
Oh, right there. 3 times a sploosh, friends and lovers. But yes, they are all Miyazaki masterpieces. Obviously, he wrote and also directed this film. We have Joe Hisashi, which has seen us through so far at the Reference Degustation. And we can talk more about the music, but it's quite evident that it has more substantial and tangible depth as opposed to the whimsical sort of themes that you would hear in Spirited Away, for example. So, it is 4 chef kisses all round. This is quite a big film for Miyazaki. It is one of the most successful. In our Spirited Away episode, we talked about the Japanese Academy Prize.
Yep.
And only 2 animated films have got it. Spirited Away, and the first one being Princess Mononoke.
Ooh.
And they now have an animated category, but at the time it was going up against films that weren't animated.
Yeah, so it should be.
And it also has, if you read fun facts about Miyazaki, you would have heard about him sending a samurai sword, to the Disney studios with a simple note saying no cuts.
No cuts.
Which was a cute gesture, but it was also a cute, threatening sort of gesture. And that was actually based off of the way they butchered Norska.
Oh, yeah. I think it was to do with them wanting to also
Cut it down
to bring the rating down to a PG.
Yeah.
Bloody hell, man.
And, like I said in the Spirited Away episode, Miyazaki is known for not finishing storyboards right up until the end of production. And, other people, I won't give you graces, but having consumed and immersed myself in the world of Miyazaki, this man can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah, and who the fuck do you think you are to cut his fucking film?
And if you haven't watched the official first cinematic release of Norska Valley of the Wind, please do that. We have paired it quite nicely. Again, maybe it's accidental learnedness. But it is. There are quite a lot of very similar themes, aside from the overall sort of tangible themes that Miyazaki has, that you have with Princess Mononoke and also Norska Valley of the Wind. So you'll expect that as our 4th course later on in this week, in this month-long celebration of our 1 year.
Yep.
In regards to adapting it to the English sort of language, it was made very clear that there wasn't going to be a full upheaval of English dubs. Again, if you watch a lot of animes, you know there's controversy about, just changing it for the sake of changing it and it completely loses its meaning. Or, in order for it to relate more to American audiences, it loses its essences.
Yeah.
Essentially. Neil Gaiman. So sad what's happening to American gods. But that's a story for another day. Ian McShane, our daddy would, at the For You Reference podcast.
One of the shows you actually look forward to watching.
We waited so we could cover it, but it seems like it's falling apart, unfortunately.
It's falling to pieces.
So this film was released in July of 1997. I don't know if you could guess, but apparently Quentin Tarantino was approached before Gaiman to adapt this into the English dub.
Oh, good. No one wants to see Kaya's feet, mate.
Yeah, and I don't think we're ready for San to say the N-word.
Oh, no.
So Neil Gaiman, he was given a full translation to English, and he was only supposed to change things just so, like we talked about in Spirited Away, just explaining that like Haku's a dragon, just explaining the small sort of bits, like Jade changed sake to wine. There were also some things that he wasn't allowed to mention China or also Japan.
Yeah.
I don't know why that would be more palatable, but anyway, that's just some context in regards to that. For the budget, it was 2.4 million Japanese yen.
Woo.
It's one of the most expensive animated films ever.
Yeah. It must have been the most expensive at the time as well.
More than Akira.
Mm.
Which is wow.
Yeah.
My stats are all over the place, so come and fight me in American and Japanese. But the worldwide gross was $162.1 million.
Oof, pretty penny.
Foof indeed. My Neighbor Totoro that we're not covering as a part of our degustation, maybe that's on the kiddies menu. That catapulted Studio Ghibli into essentially the merchandising is what brought acclaim to Ghibli on an international sort of scale. So that's why you see Totoro as the Studio Ghibli logo. But in regards to butts in cinemas and acclaim and respect and all round Miyazaki becoming a household name, it started from Princess Mononoke.
Oh yeah, gotta bring the art house audience in.
Deservedly so. Playing San, we have Ishida Yuriko. Playing Ashitaka, we have Matsuda Yuji. And a good sort of crossover that we have with this pairing, Yuji also played Asbel in Norska.
Oh.
The kid.
Oh.
So he's kind of that love-stricken kid that follows the strong woman around.
Yeah.
And we also have some crossovers that I just want to mention as well. Toki, the rambunctious wife that lives in the ironworks to Kuroku, she's played by Shimamoto Sumi, who played Norska. Well, when you've got the talent, you keep them around.
Great voice actors. You can't,
And I also want to mention as well for an upcoming reference degustation, Moro, the wolf that we have, played by Miwa Akihiro, actually plays the Witch of the Waste in Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh, wow.
And I just want to mention this now before I forget. Miwa Akihiro is known and lovingly plays a female impersonator. And the reason why that's relevant and why it's cute and why it's a fun fact is because in Japanese sort of mythology, wolves have like a masculine sort of quality to them. That's why when we started watching this film in the Japanese subtitles, we were wondering, is that a man or is that a woman? Contrasting to Gillian Anderson.
Really?
Yeah.
Gillian Moro?
Yeah.
Fucking brilliant.
Yeah. And even before recording this, I said, did you want to try the English dub just so we could see it? But, we're too learned to have the English dub in the For Your Reference household.
Oh, wow.
And Billy Bob Thornton is also on the English dub.
Oh, Gillian and Billy Bob.
And just I think this is the most English dub we've ever talked about. But Toki is played by Jada Pinkett Smith.
Oh, you gotta love some Jada.
Some freshly minted Pinkett Smith, mind you. So there's the cast that we have in regards to Mononoke Hime, otherwise known as Princess Mononoke. While we're on that, actually, the team that was adapting it into English subs really couldn't find another word for Mononoke. So essentially, Mononoke means angry or vengeful spirit. And they couldn't, unless they thought that like angry princess, like just didn't.
Disney's Angry Princess.
Or like the Japanese Disney warrior princess. Or maybe they could have called her like the Red Wing warrior princess.
Oh, Red Wing Warrior Princess.
OT knows all about it. Email him.
Got some badges, mate.
So let's get into our themes, or if you're fancy and you love a degustation, we've got some tasting notes, just like a fine wine. And if you've listened to our Spirited Away and our Porco Rosso episode, you would have heard these themes already. This is going to be a fun one, OT.
Oh, yeah.
So, hi, friends and lovers. If this is the first time, not just in this reference degustation, just in general, welcome, welcome, welcome. What a sumptuous episode you are on. But if you've been joining in this reference degustation, you will know, or if you've watched Miyazaki films, you will know that there are some tangible sort of themes that he likes to introduce. And again, this is not Quentin Miyazaki. So we're not talking about
Quentin Jerome Miyazaki.
You definitely bring a flavor to this podcast.
You're welcome.
a flavor that I don't have in my spice cabinet. Let's just put it that way. I don't even know what to do now. You've completely bamboozled me. But let's start off with the first sort of evident theme that Miyazaki has, and that is planes/flying. Just a quick sort of summary. Miyazaki's father built parts for planes, and his love for, the nature of flying and the innovation of flying is quite evident in a lot of his films. Do you feel like that was here, OT?
No, not really. Not in this.
Good, because that was a trick question. So,
I was watching the same movie as you, mate.
but you're from a different spice of reference. Well, the interesting thing about this is Miyazaki got sick of people comparing and pointing the fact that he has lots of flying in his films.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that he purposely did not include any sort of flying element in this film.
Wow. Smoke bomb?
It's like, yeah, you think I'm a 1-foot pony? We need to leave Quentin Jerome Tarantino alone.
Clearly.
Yes, so 2, 3, all the dicks to you, OT. The next theme that we have with Miyazaki is anti-war. As Mayo McKay would say, war is bad.
War is really bad.
So what do you think about that theme?
Not in the aspect that it's covered in Porco Rosso or anything like that, but there's definitely elements of anti-war, especially when it comes to the conflicts between the humans and the forest and the animals. In as much as the humans are destroying the forest, there are better ways to go about achieving sort of peace with that, rather than try and go full gang-ho. So there is some elements of that.
Oh, 100%. 100% agree. But yes, it isn't 100% like Porco Rosso, where it was like the most tangible sort of time and place, so World War One. There is war between humans because there's the introduction of guns. Right? And, I guess you could say on some element it's too simplistic to, as a theme of war, just 100% is being bad. I guess you could draw that comparison, but that's not necessarily how I feel. I feel like it was done quite well. When we do our Norska episode, it was quite interesting to watch these relatively close together and see the key messages and how in some cases Mononoke thrived in its ability to refine it a lot more, if you'll pardon the iron. So I think anti-war was quite present, not just in the fact of like war against nature or war against animals, but also against people.
Yeah.
And I do want to talk a bit more about the lepers as well, because that was quite an interesting sort of element to introduce into that as well. There were questions about whether Miyazaki introduced, lepers into the film as a way to, denote to possibly the way that we treat lepers in general. And he did confirm that. And Miyazaki doesn't confirm a lot of the messages that he chooses to portray. I think it does leave a lot to be open, right? And I guess that kind of brings me to like, This Is America with like Donald Glover. Like sometimes it's nice for creatives just to leave it open. If you give people enough breadcrumbs, Hansel OT and Gretel Katie will find their way to Sploosh Mountain.
Yeah.
But I think as we continue to talk about the film, we're going to bring up a lot about the anti-war as well. The next theme that sleeves in quite nicely, and sometimes it's paired together, is environment. And how we treat it, or also how we mistreat environment. Do you think that was tackled in this film?
Yeah,
that was a very 60 minutes question. I wanted a specific soundbite.
I think the most important underlying theme of the movie is about the environment and how we treat it, and the sort of conflict that exists between even now. It's such a nuanced movie where, it's applicable decades later. So it's definitely covered in abundance.
In abundance, indeed. And I guess just to give, a bit of a reference in regards to Miyazaki, he actually used to visit a blacksmith as a kid. And he was so awe-inspired by, the craft and the artisanal sort of nature and the craftsmanship of being a blacksmith, but then he saw the resources that were needed in order to create that.
Yeah.
And it kind of inspired him to make this movie. And I think that denotes quite a lot to this film generally. I think it's more of an even-handed sort of message in regards to how we treat the environment. It's not necessarily that, we need to live as we did in ancient times.
But there are definitely better ways of going about it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that's 100%. And I think it was more clear cut when you watch Norska as well. But I think that was quite an interesting, sort of tasting note to have. And, this film, the foundation of this film is our environment. And that fucking dickhead of a dear God, but we'll come to that very soon. The next theme that we have, OT, is a female lead / kids.
I wonder where we had that. Oh, for sure. We have Princess Mononoke. Hello. She's strong. Even, she's carrying the whole sort of burden, and she has to be doubly tough, living in the forest, being human, around other animals who, of course, apart from the Moro tribe, see her as human. She's quite strong. And the way she goes about fighting Ironwork, she's super dedicated. She's like a single will sort of conviction in terms of getting Lady Boshi to kill Lady Boshi, pretty much. She's really strong and dedicated. I think she's one of the strongest characters we've seen in a Miyazaki movie.
Oh, OT has come to the table, guys.
Yeah.
And he has come on the table, mind you. And we all most welcome. When you go to fancy restaurants and they have like the little water with the lemon to like cleanse your fingers, we have OT's fluids. Again, you saw Princess Mononoke. It does have a higher rating in regards to maturity, but you probably thought you were safe, but you should have paid attention to the explicit tag for this episode. Interesting thing in regards to San, which is her name. She doesn't appear until like 20 minutes in the film.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting. One of the producers of the film was quite worried that they wouldn't be able to keep, the runtime of the film, within a tight sort of two hours, right?
Well, that's back when they cared about runtimes, eh?
Okay, OT Pesci.
Right now, they'll just do a fucking 4-hour movie without any care in the world.
Well, you know what? Shout outs to Martin Scorsese, because we've mentioned The Irishman in 2 of these courses. So I think that's exactly what he wanted to do. Yeah. But one of the working titles for this film was The Legend of Ashitaka. Because if you think about it, San is the hero and it is called Princess Mononoke. But also at the same time, again, she doesn't turn up until like 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
So it is interesting. I don't know how we would feel about potentially having, Ashitaka as our main character, but it is based on, or I guess you could say that part of this film was based on a graphic novel written and also illustrated by our all-hailed Hayao Miyazaki called The Journey of Shuna. And it's also about a prince that has an elk as well. I'm just showing OT the photo. Mm-hmm. So that also draws some influences, and also with Yakur as well. But I really like the way that this film was structured. And also talking about the structure of this film, you'll notice there is quite a lot of dark themes with this. And again, we didn't mean to do this, but since Miyazaki did Porco Rosso, he wanted to tackle something a bit more darker. And he also mentioned once he did Porco Rosso, he couldn't go back to doing Kiki's Delivery Service, which if you've watched it, it's about a cute little witch on a broomstick, right? So he wanted to tackle something with some more dark themes, because we were talking about war, we were talking about inability to love and accept yourself, rather being a pig than a fascist in Porco Rosso. And then now you have Princess Mononoke. So it still has more real world shit, essentially. So that, I think that's quite interesting. And it's quite a nice sort of menu we've got going on, OT. I smell what OT's cooking, and we are almost welcome.
Oh, yeah.
The next theme that we have, which I think was quite interesting, and I definitely want to dive into some more detail, is the ambiguity that Miyazaki has, the ability that he allows his characters to have multiple dimension. Someone isn't 100% bad in his films, and they're not 100% evil. Good rather.
Oh yeah. I think the perfect example for this is Lady Boshi.
Yeah.
On one hand, she's destroying the forest, but on the other, she's pretty much helping a community thrive. She's taking in lepers. She's taking the people who are disregarded by the society in lepers and prostitutes, and helping them and founding a community around them, giving them a purpose to live, giving them a purpose to be proud of themselves. So Lady Boshi is quite a complex character, and I think this is kind of the things that we started seeing in Spirited Away as well. Where it's not necessarily no one is inherently at least bad in this, where Lady Boshi has some layers to her.
Yeah.
But
she definitely had more complexity than Yubaba in Spirited Away. She was less mustache twirling.
And I guess my point was more towards Yubaba's sister and the way they try to depict the two. Yeah. So in this Mononoke, we have Lady Boshi, who's fundamentally, I think, a good person, albeit doing... I would say that fundamentally a good person who's kind of just doesn't see the bigger picture.
How about this? She's a person, and being a person means you're flawed. I'll agree with that.
No, because a good person can accept when they're wrong. And at the end of this, we see that she accepts what she's done, and she understands the importance of the environment and sees, hey, okay, so I've had some sort of character development by the end of it where I can accept my faults and try and change and build a better community, which she does.
Okay, I said in our Porco Rosso episode, I will never rank the Miyazaki films, and don't ask me to do that. But I do feel like, in particular with Lady Eboshi, that her character development was a bit too
Cookie cutter?
It was a bit too tied into a bow.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's a bit too Tyler Perry. I was like, what?
Okay, OT Jerome Tarantino. You've got a lot of aliases today, apparently.
I do.
It ain't easy being white. That's an Arrested Development reference, which we need to fucking cover this year. But what we are covering today is Mononoke Hime, otherwise known as Princess Mononoke. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for continuing to tune in. But Lady Eboshi definitely stirs up a lot within humanity. You know, it's like that meme. You think you're San, but you're really Lady Eboshi. But I like the fact that we toy with, you know, inherently good, inherently bad, because that just doesn't exist. Aside from other instances that we're not going to get into today. The next theme, shall we move on?
Mm-hmm.
The next theme, Miyazaki really has an affinity for pigs, and he's also known for illustrating himself as a pig. How was the pig fair in Princess Mononoke?
Oh, we got some pegs. We got some stupid pegs. But we do have pigs in there. So you have them in paws. Those are just pretty much wild pigs. And they're quite fundamental in the story because we see the curse is spread to Ashitaka from a bow that was shot by Lady Eboshi's guns. And it starts from there. That's pretty much the starting point of the movie. And with Okoto, we come and see how just pigs are displayed in this, where they're pretty much dumb as.
Did you say displayed of pigs?
You wish. But we see how they're displayed, and they're pretty much dumb, I think.
They're for lack of reference pun, they're pig-headed. Like, they had a goal, and that's all they focused on. And let's definitely put a bookmark in regards to, you know, the initial scene, because that was quite interesting in regards to the curse, because it's essentially hatred, right? You've got those wriggly sort of worm maggots, but essentially it's symbolizing your hatred, and you can't see past that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's definitely put a bookmark on that. But in regards to, you know, the fact that it really is the reference circle of life.
Mm-hmm.
I know, throw all the tomatoes at me, but it really is, because you see the highs and lows, and you see, aside from the humans really, that there are graces to be given to all parties in this. Again, aside from the humans. Yes, they will continue to take advantage of nature to advance, right? Unless you're going to be more agricultural, you know, to advance into a metropolitan sort of society, you need to take advantage of nature. But there's a way to do that.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the finesse in the message in the film. But pigs definitely gets a big tick. Okoto, to his own detriment to his own people, sacrificed them all.
He did.
They drank the pig aid at the Bay of Pigs, and it was a fiasco for them all. But we'll definitely talk about the interplays between the different animals, because I thought that was quite interesting. But pigs definitely get a big tick. But you'll also notice, like, even in Spirited Away and also Porco Rosso that we've already covered, you know, the pigs were also not of the best quality either.
Well, apart from Porco Rosso.
No, but he couldn't love himself, so that's why he had that curse on him. I believe, anyway.
Yeah, true. It's more of how pigs maybe are displayed culturally in Japan. Well, religiously, pigs are displayed as sort of dirty creatures, and you don't want to really associate with them, because in the Bible you have like this sort of Jesus cast demons into the pigs because they're dirty or whatever the hell they explained it with. And it's sort of like the thing you grew up thinking.
And thank you, OT, for that tasting note.
You're welcome.
Most welcome. The last theme that we have is whimsical / fantasy.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes and no. But that's quite interesting because when you watch Spirit Away, for example, you're like, oh, whimsical fantasy, yes, Miyazaki does that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But sometimes no.
I was gonna say no, but I kind of have
Okay, so where's the yes, mister?
my yes is in the whole fact of the deer god.
Well, I guess, do you want to call mythology fantasy?
And I guess that's why I was going with it, because I didn't know whether or not to classify it as that or not.
Like Jediism is a religion. Like, does it stop being fantasy? But I get what you're saying, because I was going to make a similar sort of point. There are devices in a fantastical sort of nature that are used to convey key messages.
Yeah.
Real world environmental messages.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but I guess if we go more towards a traditional sort of explanation for this, is more geared towards things like the forest spirits, where it's sort of a mythological thing. We have in many, many sort of cultures, we have these stories. Like Africa has heaps of that. In this, we have the kodamas, which there to sort of, they kind of portray the health of the forest and
like the tree spirits.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess to some extent, but not as much as we've seen in Spirited Away.
Yeah, and we talked about Kami in the Spirited Away episode. So if you want to hear more about like Shinto sort of influences throughout Miyazaki works, we did cover a bit of that in this Spirited Away episode. But yeah, it was an interesting, and you can see, the treatment of the Kodama obviously reflects how nature is being treated. As well. So I definitely want to do a bit more of a dive in regards to that. But those are the themes. Those are the tasting notes in regards to Princess Mononoke.
Yep.
Let's talk more generally about the film. I think we should start off with Ashitaka because he actually starts the film off. And then we can work our way onto San.
Yeah.
Ashitaka. He is a player without a prayer. What the fuck, man?
He really is.
So he had this gal, he had this sweetheart, Kaya, even to the point where she gifts her most beloved jewel dagger to him. And then you later on see in the movie, he just casually gives it to San.
Yeah.
He really risked it all for that lady.
Yeah.
Because he was like passed out, and the first thing he said to her was, "You're so beautiful."
And they fell in love like they barely even spoke 10 words to each other by then.
Like Romeo and Juliet, who?
Crazy.
He saw that wolf pussy and he was not looking back.
Oh no, man. The far, eh?
Oh. Jesus Christ, man. Wow. Interesting. And I feel like his character is quite interesting quite similar to Asbel in Norska as well. But Ashitaka, he really seemed to be the sort of guy that you would want in your village,
Oh, yeah.
He was there to protect you. He did what needed to be done. And he could fuck you by dinner time all at the same time.
Unless you're Kaya.
Wow. You wonder, right?
Yeah.
She's like sitting there, like writing love letters to this guy.
Ashitaka, I love you so much. I'll give you my only dagger, my precious possession.
She was probably praying to the deer god. That's why it got nowhere.
Probably.
I have qualms.
The deer god is shit. Anyway, we'll get back to him later.
But yeah, he was definitely a guy, a good old guy that you wanted to have around.
Yeah.
And he definitely ended up leaving his Jennifer Garner. But Ashitaka is a great guy.
Clearly, he didn't care too much about Kaya, because at the end of it all, he doesn't even go back to the village because he says that he's going to live in the Iron
He's
Works.
going to stay there, yeah.
And come visit Mononoke whenever.
When she's in heat.
Yeah.
Or when Ashitaka is feeling like a red warrior. A red wing, if you'll pardon the wing.
Mm.
But it was interesting. And then we meet some characters along the way. Jiko Bo being one of them. He's like an old sort of samurai. We later find out that he's kind of like a double agent and he's kind of working with Lady Eboshi as well.
Yeah, but he's kind of just self-centered.
But he was kind of likable.
Not really. He's seeing the world around him collapse, but he's insisting on running with the head. It's fucking ridiculous. Why you gonna go with it? He's running up a mountain. Where you gonna go?
Especially in that robe, that precarious robe.
Oh, dear. Bloody hell. Ridiculous character.
Yeah, but I also feel like, you could have a super evil person, but he kind of wasn't.
Nah, he's worse than Iboshi.
Okay.
He really
Is it because
is.
he's a man?
Not
he comes off
even.
a bit more gruff. Because here's another fun fact for you, my love OT. Miyazaki mentioned that he didn't want to make Iboshi like the leader of the ironworks to be a man because it was boring and it wasn't progressive enough. So he thought it would be a more interesting sort of dynamic to have a woman at the helm.
A woman, a man, I think it would have still come out the same to me. And the thing is, he was all about himself, unlike Iboshi, who Iboshi tried to uplift the community.
Yeah, but don't you think she also used people that were discarded by society because no one would look for them?
No, I think she gave them purpose.
But I feel like you're really seeing it through an Iboshi tinted glasses.
Those are the only glasses I bought me. But anyway, seriously
Watch out for
though.
our Abacus and Iboshi glasses merch.
But seriously, the discarded people in society barely get a look up.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone does something and empowers them, not only to be able to look after themselves, but to, give them purpose in life, that's something you can take away.
Oh, no, I'm not taking away from the fact that she helped them, but I'm saying what her intentions were. I don't necessarily think it was, just out of the goodness of her own heart.
Well, you could see that the lepers were really appreciative of Iboshi because of the life they led before that.
Yeah, because no one cared for them.
Exactly. You could see the prostitutes, regardless of what at least Iboshi thought in her mind or whatever.
She was there when they
She was there when no one else was.
I get that.
And at the end of the day, that's all that matters to them, regardless of whether her intentions were fully pure or not.
Speaking of pure, I don't know why we're not addressing the elephant in the room. Let's talk about us portrayed in a Miyazaki film for the first time as Koroku and Toki. As the useless husband and the rambunctious wife.
So, as the rambunctious wife.
Yes, how did you feel?
Wow, she took the reins when Iboshi was not around. She was a leader.
Oh, yes.
You could definitely see the sort of effect that Iboshi has had on everyone.
Yeah.
And she was there to lead the community when Iboshi was not there. She gave commands to men, women, and children alike.
There's actually no children in this village, if you notice.
I said children, I was like,
but that's good because it's a fun fact. And this does tackle more, more heavier sort of subject matter. Well, another fun fact for you, OT, some extra seasoning on your degustation menu. Miyazaki noted that he didn't want to have kids, at least visible, in the town because he didn't want to show as if they were in the settling phase of a town. So, you can assume that kids were there because, you and me, OT, we're nothing but mammals.
Yeah. It doesn't go like that, but I get your point.
Do it then. I didn't know you had the Bollywood theme on you. Well, at least we're never going to get copyrighted because I don't know what fucking Kids Bop that shit was. That dried up all the children you had in your sack. Are you quite done, sir?
Why are you bopping your head then?
I was just regretting all of the yas. They call it long suffering for a reason, mate. But it was an interesting sort of thing. But this sort of love campaign you have for Lady Eboshi, I'm not really targeting it because we have a lot to get through. But I really think it was a bit too simplistic to just say, oh, okay, I'm a good person now.
Not that she's a good person now. It's just more so that people are different layers to them.
Yeah, but she literally took all off her bad layers.
She didn't understand. There's a difference between ignorance and just naive and not wanting to learn more.
Okay, that felt very pointed, so let's move on. So we've talked a bit about the humans, right? We have Ashitaka's village, and this is a good point. I want to mention this. So we have the oracle at the start of the film in the opening scene where she pays her respects to the boar. Even though the boar has pretty much threatened them and said, I'm going to cause fucking shit and you're going to feel all of the pain that I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Can I just say me? Hashtag same. I'm a vengeful motherfucker. If I'm dying suffering, so will you. Right? But we have the oracle and she's saying, please forgive us, pass peacefully, let us be on our way. Right? So that was quite a beautiful message that he had at the start of the film, and it flows on quite well into it. You know, like I said, we've covered the humans, we've talked about the ironworks, we've talked a bit about the samurai. It's also the only film that Miyazaki has set in feudal Japan as well, which was quite interesting. He wanted to make sure that Ashitaka wasn't on a horse because he didn't want people to think that he was a samurai.
Oh.
So that's how we got Yakur. And then we also talked about the lepers. We talked about the women as well in Ironworks. I want to spend some time talking about the animals. I really don't, because in Spirited Away, we talked about when did the fantasy start of like Chihiro dreaming that this was happening. I'm really not interested personally in the fantasy and when it's real and when it's not. To be perfectly honest, I feel like I dipped my toe in and it felt great. So I remained in that space. So let's stay there. Yeah. So we have a hierarchy of different sort of animals and spirits as well. So I definitely want to cover them. The three main groups of animals / spirits that we have are the apes. I kind of regard them more as spirits because they seemed more like personages as opposed to like solid creatures.
Yeah.
We also have Moro and the wolf pack. And we also have the boars, which is headed by Okoto.
Yeah.
So do you want to start off with the apes?
Let's start off with the apes.
I felt like it was quite interesting, and it might also have been, deliberate learnedness. But, when you talk about apes and, I'm not sure what your Christian science classes told you, but in regards to evolution, if you think about apes, it is the more primitive, the more sort of genesis in regards to existence. And that's how I partook in regards to how they were feeling and how they wanted to respond to the humans.
Yeah.
You have them throwing rocks, which I thought was like really funny. Like they were throwing rocks towards Moro and towards, it's specifically because Ashitaka was there and he was a human, right? So they were like throwing rocks in their sort of general direction. And, they were speaking very simply. They were speaking very primitively. And they said, we plant trees, humans destroy them. We eat the humans, we grow stronger, we kill the humans, right? And it was a very fundamental, pragmatic sort of approach.
Yeah.
It's like we're here minding our business, trying to build our nature, and they're fucking it all up. So, yeah, we're going to eat you and fuck you up.
True.
So it is a very primitive sort of like, yeah, let's go in, let's do it. Right? But you could also see that they lost a lot of power that they possibly might have had in a previous sort of life.
Yeah. It seems like they've been through a ringer, They're clearly disillusioned to the point where they think the only logical step for them is to try and get some sort of strength from the human. That's by eating them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I felt sorry for them
Yeah.
They're trying to maintain the forest and trying to plant trees. I think they're sort of like the only ones who are doing that.
Yeah, they're
Maybe
actually trying.
yeah, because I don't think Moro and the boys are doing anything about planting trees.
And that's actually addressed, at least in passing, when Ashitaka first comes to the ironworks. They talked about how the animals weren't happy that they were clearing out the forests, right? So it was nice. You had some direct sort of correlations in regards to deforestation, but then you also had offhanded comments that had major sort of impacts, especially in regards to the apes.
Oh, for sure.
They were really just trying their best. Right. And it's like they came to a point where it's like, you know, man eat man or ape eat man sort of thing. So they were just trying to do their best, really.
Yeah, true.
Let's focus on the boars a little bit. Like we mentioned in the tasting notes or the themes, pigs is a fun little theme that we have with Miyazaki films. And Okoto, he's not bad, he's dumb. And is that worse?
I think it's worse, especially when you're in a leadership position.
But he's not even dumb either.
Nah, he's dumb.
I think he was just focused to his own detriment. To be able to wield that much power, you can't be that dumb, surely.
I think with him, it's just a matter of brute force that
Okay.
made him lead the pack. And the fact that he knew very well that if he held some sort of resentment and became vengeful at the end or towards when he's dying, he'll become this vengeful spirit, didn't negate for shit.
Yeah, but when you get treated so badly for so long, is it really that much of a surprise when you go on a bloody path of rampage?
And I guess that's the point of it all, because the DA God kind of said that at the end of it all, he'll decide whether you live or die. And I guess that's kind of the point of we see Moro and Okoto towards the end. And from then on, you could just tell they're not leaving.
Well, they're too set in their own ways. And even if they were to live, they wouldn't be able to live in a way that would be conducive to peace.
True.
And that was quite clear. It was sad that it had to end that way. But like you said, with Moro and Okoto, they just couldn't live in a new world because there was too much pain. They had suffered too much to live in peace that was definitely earned, but not necessarily, it was the wrong time. You know, they had suffered way too much to be able to enjoy or to be able to exist in that sort of peace.
Yeah. And when the humans are wearing the disguises of the boars.
Oh, man. Okay, I take it back. He is dumb then.
He's dumb. He thought they were spirits.
Well, that's very important because what he thought was more important than what was real.
Yeah.
And that was his problem.
Yeah.
He had that hatred, right? And let's come to that in a second. But he had that hatred, he had a goal, and he didn't care how he got there.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about that for a second, because Moro, I think, is a good way to end, because we'll also tie in San as well. But when we talk about the spell, you know, with Porco Rosso, even with Sen, Shihiro in Spirited Away, and even upcoming with Howl's Moving Castle, you know, spells, if you want to have an extended sort of reference degustation theme pack, you can also add spells into there as well, because that's also prevalent in this film as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, yes, you have a visual, because that really helps to convey that, right? You have a visual of those, like, you know, hentai baby worms coming all over you. Is that not what it was? Because that would make the film a lot less interesting for me.
You just give the... you just made the movie rated R, mate.
I will get my fucking writer's credit. As KT Miyazaki, his estranged kid that he refuses to acknowledge at his fourth Hokage, I will get my writer's credit on all of Miyazaki films, at least the ones featured in the Reference Degustation, and also in Naruto. I'll see you in the ring, brother.
Okay, third Hokage.
You're the sixth Hokage.
Oh, Kakashi.
Yeah.
Oh, bloody hell. Might as well be the third then.
Give OT and I a chance to pull all of our glasses up because I feel like we were being very otaku nerds right now. Arigatou gozaimasu. Listen to our Naruto episode and also our anime special with Anime Nerd and Savage Otaku.
Mm-hmm.
Look at us, referencing on our Reference Degustation. Who'da thunk it?
Hold up. Not Okoto.
So let's go back to the skins. I think it made sense though, because sometimes, when you have characters that are dumb just to drive the plot along, I think it made sense to his character that he just wanted to believe it because he wanted to take his brothers and sisters to go and get healed by the deer god.
Yeah.
So it was a noble intention. Does that not have any sort of bearing or not?
No, dumb is dumb, mate. Doesn't matter whether your intentions was in the right place or not. At the end of it, if it's not intelligent, then...
So why do you ever talk on this podcast?
Mate.
Oti koto?
No, mate. Got some Jerome blood flowing in here.
Leave Quentin alone. I wonder, do you think we'll cover a Quentin Tarantino film this year?
I don't know.
Thanks, Jerome. Appreciate it. Oh, but... wow. I really enjoyed it. And we didn't really get into our first impressions because we've kind of already done it on the other 2 episodes. But I do just want to take some time to say that, I've always been that kid that just absolutely loved dogs. I think developmentally, I resonate more with dogs than I do with humans.
Mm.
Like, I would rather spend time with our dog than with OT, but don't tell him. He's the Okoto of this household.
No, you just need to tell our dog that.
Wow. Our dog is he's a Kazakage. Again, listen to our Naruto episode. But it was very interesting, and as someone that really loves dogs, I was very disappointed that once we got a greyhound, I couldn't, ride through the city on our dog like Princess Mononoke.
Yeah.
But it is quite a beautiful film. I really love Princess Mononoke, and it's definitely a film that will stick with me. It is something that I will continue to watch. It did become a bit too resolute. Miyazaki made it clear that he didn't want to end just on the war and then it happened and then war is bad. So we did see a bit more of the ending, and it became more of a happy ever after sort of theme to it. Neil Gaiman mentioned that he would have made it more resolute in the fact that San and also Ashitaka would get medals.
Medals or married?
What? And they would skip off into the sunset. And they would throw couscous.
Oh, wow. That sort of wedding.
It's been a while since we referenced Key and Peele. So there's a Key and Peele reference for you. We will reserve you tickets at the Pony Show.
Oh, for sure. And I'd like us to talk about the deer god for a bit.
Yes, thank you.
Just for a little bit.
Not a lot, OT girl, just a little bit.
Because I think he is crap.
Oh, okay, PG OT.
Oh, there's no 2 ways about it. He sees the guy has all the powers in the world.
Yeah, somehow he's the most powerful thing, but he does fucking nothing. And we love you guys. And again, any sort of real talks, hail Satan, about religion, we won't cover on our main sort of podcast. But he really felt like a Christian god to me.
He walked on water.
He is omniscient. He is everything. Yet somehow, when things happen, he's not there.
He's not there. Takes him being shot in the fucking head to lift a finger.
But even then, it was the humans that saved him and brought his head back.
Yeah, he can't even catch 2 fat guys running up a hill.
Yeah, and we knew he was fat because it was quite evident with the upskirt. Man, Jiko Bo had way more upskirts than Norska, and that's saying something. But the deer god, I found the deer god to be very problematic. And again, if you guys are religious or on a different extent, you're spiritual, then no offense to you guys. But this film thematically made me wonder why people would believe in a deer god or something similar. Because it's this omniscient sort of power, but he did fucking nothing. You know, you had Okoto and you also had Moro. They were both trying to help. The apes were trying to help themselves. All the while, the deer god was doing bumfuck wherever with bumfuck who.
Ever so often you'd spot him just grazing and walking past.
Like, I feel like Harry Potter's Patronus did way more than this deer god.
Mate, he did more for Ashitaka in that movie than he did for the entire...
for healing him, right?
Yeah.
It's just, man, it was a problem. It was definitely a problem. I did kind of like, you know, if I can take all of my cynical mortal coils off. That's a Hamlet reference. You're so welcome.
I'm just thinking of Kenneth Branagh. Stop pretending.
I do. And we all think about Kenneth Branagh. Not necessarily the Hercule Poirot, Kenneth Branagh, but anyway.
Overshot, looking at his bald spot.
Yeah, that was a bit much. Let us know if you want us to cover Murder on the Orient Express, because we've also read the book because we're very learned. Mm-hmm. And OT is the 2017 Mbok.
If there ever was such a stupid character, man, Mbok is
Okoto?
Okoto of this movie.
We're such nerds.
Oh, dear.
You know, people are touching each other while we're just talking about books.
Oh, yeah. Gotta read Agatha Christie, mate.
Right? 10 Little Sailors, mind you.
Yeah.
But the deer god I really found to be a problem. He was really he wasn't necessarily the catalyst, but he was really the pinnacle that people were working towards. Pilgrimage, if you will. Mm. And he really failed to deliver, not just in spiritual sort of nature, but just from a story point of view. Mm. But again, if I can rattle off my cynical mortal coils, which is where I was going, OT, before you got jealous of Kenneth Branagh, I did enjoy the ending, you know. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the most sophisticated, but, you know, they were talking about the deer god has died and has chosen for you to live, but the deer god lives on because he is life and death. So I appreciated that in the sense that it tied the film together from, you know, humans are bad to not necessarily so. I think it was quite full development on humans.
True, agreed 100% on
that. Let's finish off with San. Because, again, this is Princess Mononoke or Mononoke Hime. I really liked her. She was a badass bitch that mind her own business. You know, she needs to ride that dick every once in so often, but that's all men are good for, really. Right, ladies?
Yeah, she has no interest in humans. She, in fact, says that she hates humans and she could never forgive them. And that's why she'd return to the forest with the wolves. And I guess to a point, they've suffered for such a long time. It's understandable. But it'll reach a point, I think, she would need to realize that, bitch, you're human.
No, she knows she's a human. But her hatred for human isn't enough for her to want to live amongst them. We can all be Jane Goodall, okay? And live amongst the gorillas. At least that's my vision. If this podcast thing doesn't work out, I've got some hippos in Naivasha.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Naivasha Mononoke.
Yeah, you're just swimming in a bloody dirty river with the hippos, eh?
OT is my dirty river. If you're looking for some travel notes, Naivasha is a great place for hippos, right, OT? Mm-hmm. And even if I'm not there, you'll find some other hippos there.
Yeah, and you can even pitch the tents next to the hippos.
Yeah, which is what you used to do, right?
Oh, yeah, indeed.
Indeed as well. If you guys are interested in an OT Miyazaki joint, let us know. Let us know. Thank you so much, friends and lovers. Mononoke Hime has always been a film that I've really just held tight to myself. We talked about it in the Porco Rosso episode. Miyazaki is full on escapism.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a world that will sweep you away. And you can also introduce, some heavier themes as well that doesn't have precocious children. And you can still find enjoyment in it.
Oh, yeah, indeed.
And that's where I feel Miyazaki excels and continues to excel. There's a reason why Mononoke was able to relate to so many. There's a reason why it's one of the most successful animated films in Japan. And for a long time, it was the highest grossing film in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why. And, the whole episode is why. We strongly encourage you to continue to immerse yourself in the immortalized words of Bong Joon-ho. Don't let that 1 inch get in your way. Embrace it. Enjoy it. As Doctore would say in Spartacus, you want to love it, you want to fuck it. And it's a good old time, guys. So thank you so much, guys, for listening to the third course in our reference degustation. We are chugging along and we are moving towards our 50th episode OT.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting. We are 2 episodes away from our 50th episode, just in time for our 1 year of podcasting, which is very exciting. Again, thank you so much for tuning in another week in the For Your Reference household. Usually we have our segment called For Your Reference, but again, this is a degustation menu, so the references are as per the menu.
Mm-hmm.
No allergy requests accepted. Unless you're not ready to be a Red Wing, we allow you to be comfortable with that. Speaking of being comfortable, on Twitter and Instagram, we are For Your Ref Pod.
You can write us an email at hello@fypodcast.com.
We want to thank you guys so much for all of the lovely ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts. If you would like to contribute to that, we would love you so much. And we also have a Patreon.
See ya.
Bye.